Hi ladies, good morning. Welcome to my live Ask Me Anything. So I like doing these once a month and it's super fun for me to come in and answer all of your questions about relationships, about dating, about healing, about breaking the cycle of bad and toxic relationships. So welcome. As always, please let me know if you are here, where you are watching from, if you can hear me, if you can see me. And also give me a heart or a like if you are excited about today's live. I am super excited to do this. I always love coming on here and answering your questions. So what I'm going to do is I have a list of questions that have been pre-submitted. I'm going to go through them. And then I'm going to leave room for some live questions. So as we're going along here, please feel free to put your question in the comments and I will get to it and answer it. But yeah, let me know if you're here watching, say hi. And also please let me know if you can see me and hear me because Facebook, it has a mind of its own sometimes. I think it's working. I think we're live. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first question that I had from one of our group members here is, how do you distinguish between I'm feeling unsafe or uncomfortable in this relationship, I need to leave it, versus I'm feeling uncomfortable in this relationship because I'm acting in a toxic way and I need to change while remaining in the relationship? So I believe that this question is in reference to someone who was looking through their partner's phone or something. They were being a little bit sneaky and looking at things that maybe were private, and they found out that their partner was lying. So I'm curious if you guys have been through a situation like this too, and what you did once you found out that information. And I'm going to give you my perspective here too. So here's the thing. While we don't want to be that person, and I think that's what this person was saying. They were saying that, I don't want to be this person. This is not me. Being this person who is acting in a way that is not in integrity with me. The reality is this has already happened. You've already found out that this person is lying to you. So while we can acknowledge that, yeah, you know what, I don't want to do that in the future. I don't want to be so suspicious that I need to check someone else's stuff, we still have to acknowledge the reality that we now know that this person has been lying to us. And we can't take that away. We can't negate that. We can't pretend that that isn't going on. We can't take this all on ourselves and say, oh, okay, I was acting in a way that isn't in integrity with myself, and therefore I'm the only one that needs to change in this relationship. So what I would advise you, the person who asked this question, is to go, if you don't have it already, go look at my healthy relationship behaviors checklist. And if you guys are watching this and you don't have that checklist, type in checklist and I'll send that over to you. But it's basically a list of all the healthy relationship behaviors that you want to look for, okay? And if someone is not displaying these healthy relationship behaviors, then that's a sign that you are uncomfortable because of the relationship and not because of your own behavior. And again, this doesn't mean that we're acting perfectly and that we have nothing to shift or change, but what it does mean is that this may not be the right relationship. This is a good way to tell if that discomfort is from the relationship or from your own behavior, okay? So I hope that this is making sense to the person who asked this. If I were in a relationship myself with someone who I found out was lying, and maybe I found that out in a way that wasn't ideal, I wouldn't be able to just erase that from my mind. Lying is not a healthy relationship behavior. It's a red flag. It's a very big red flag. So unless this person is really willing to address that behavior, go to some therapy, take responsibility, this relationship is unlikely to be healthy and unlikely to work out. Okay? And maybe you had an instinct that this person was lying to you, and that's what drove you to check the phone or whatever it was. And I'm not excusing that behavior, but there's probably something there. So again, go to the healthy relationship behavior checklist, and if it seems like this person is not exhibiting these behaviors, then it's likely that the relationship is not good for you. So I hope this helps. And again, bring your questions here. I'm going through the pre-submitted questions, but I'm going to get to any questions that you guys have at the end here. Okay. So someone else asked me, hey Lindsay, what are some examples of passive-aggressive things a narcissistic or toxic partner will say or do? So who here has been in a toxic or narcissistically abusive relationship? Just, I'm curious, just give me a heart comment, because you might have some examples of this too. So some things that passive-aggressive people do are things like giving you the silent treatment, stonewalling, which means, they're upset at you, but they're not going to tell you. They're not going to be open in their communication. They're just going to stop talking. Maybe they'll ignore you. Maybe they won't even bring it up, but you'll just know that something's wrong. And this goes to the next point, the next example that I have of this, which is saying that they're mad, saying that they're not mad, but acting otherwise. Again, giving you the silent treatment, acting in a way that, you can tell that there's something wrong, but they're not talking about it. They're ignoring you. They're giving you that silent treatment. Okay? So these are some more examples. Another example, of being passive aggressive is deliberately procrastinating or putting off things that need to be done as a way of acting out that aggression. So if they're supposed to take the garbage out, or if they're supposed to do a certain chore around the house, they won't do it. They'll put it off, and maybe they'll say, oh, I forgot, or I didn't remember to do that. But really, they're being passive aggressive. It's like a power move. Another example of this would be subtle insults. Sometimes when people are being outwardly aggressive, you can feel it. It's an insult. You can feel that they were attacking you. But passive aggressive is someone says something and you're like, oh, was that actually an insult? It kind of felt like it, but I'm not quite sure. And I'll give you an example of this. Someone would say, oh, it's so nice that you can eat whatever you want. And you're like, huh? yeah, it is nice, thank you. But was I just insulted? It's not clear, but it's a very, very subtle dig. So these are some examples of passive aggressiveness. It's not a healthy behavior. If you're seeing these things, these are definitely red flags. So watch out for that in your relationships. All right. So I'm going to keep going here. The next question I had was, what is codependency? And what are some examples of this? So I just want to start by saying that I personally am not a fan of the term codependency, and I'm going to explain why. So when I was coming out of an abusive relationship, I was first introduced to the term codependency. I was trying to figure out, what happened? How did I get to this point where I ended up in an abusive relationship? And the term codependency kept coming up. And so I did some research on it, and it just didn't resonate with me. Some parts did, but I was like, this doesn't seem totally like me. Because the classic definition of codependency is the caretaker and the dysfunctional person dynamic. Usually it's in reference to someone who is an addict in that relationship, and the other person, it becomes the caregiver, and they enable that person to kind of just live in their addiction. So that's where the term codependency originated from. But it has now just been really generalized into describing all sorts of other relationship dynamics. And I don't like using that term. I don't think it's useful, and I'm gonna continue to explain why. But basically, what codependency is describing is a relationship dynamic where the relationship is not healthy, and it's characterized by someone who is codependent putting their needs aside in favor of someone else's needs. So the other person's needs take precedence in the relationship. So again, this term was not originally meant to describe all these different types of relationship dynamics, but it's been taken over and been generalized. And I found that coming out of an abusive relationship, it was really the last thing that I needed to hear. I didn't need to hear that there was another thing that was wrong with me. I was codependent. Because as you know, when you're coming out of an abusive relationship, a lot of the abuse is there's something wrong with you, you're bad, you're this terrible person. So I didn't find it very empowering or very healing to think of myself as, oh, I'm codependent. What I actually resonate much more with is the work of Ross Rosenberg, who wrote, I have the book here, it's called The Human Magnet Syndrome, and he does a lot of work talking about the codependent and the narcissistic dynamic, that relationship. But what he actually describes what's going on is a self-love deficit. It's not codependency, okay? That doesn't quite hit the nail on the head when it's coming to talking about the dynamics of what is going on between someone who is codependent and someone who is narcissistic, okay? It's a lack of self-love. And I like that term a lot better. I think it really describes what's going on here. Because an example of this would be staying in an abusive relationship, even though it hurts you, okay? Because you know that this other person has had a lot of childhood trauma, you feel bad for them, you want to help them, you want to rescue them, and you kind of enable that person's bad behavior or mistreatment of you by staying, okay? You can often feel like you can't leave because it's too scary. You don't want to go through the pain of detaching from this person, or you may think that there's no one better out there for you. So you have to kind of settle for this relationship. So that's really what the codependent dynamic is. And again, I don't like using that term. I think self-love deficit is much more appropriate to describe what's going on here. But it gets very confusing and it gets very tricky because you can think of the codependent experience as an addiction to a relationship that is not healthy for you. However, here's the thing. All relationships are essentially addictive, okay? We only consider it a problem when the relationship is unhealthy, when it's abusive, when it's toxic, okay? But in a healthy relationship, there is a sense of dependence. There is an attachment, right? And you can call that an addiction. But when it's healthy, it's not a problem, right? Because an addiction is an unconscious draw to something that is unhealthy for us, something that is harmful. But yeah, it's only a problem when you're having that feeling in a a relationship that isn't healthy for you, that isn't good for you. Excuse me, ladies. So really, that's why I don't like using that term. I don't like pathologizing this dynamic, because here's my other take to it. I'm going to throw a little spirituality in here. So very often when I talk about narcissism, the way I teach about it is that it's not like someone is narcissistic and someone is not. It exists on a spectrum, right? Healthy, people that are considered healthy and normal are in the middle of that spectrum, which means they still have some narcissism within them, okay? It's only when it gets to the extreme that it becomes toxic, and the very extreme where people can be labeled as having narcissistic personality disorder. But codependency also exists in the same way. It also exists on a spectrum. So when we're talking about the ego is the wounded inner child within us. It's the part of us that has been conditioned and hurt. The ego is always going to be narcissistic until it's not there anymore, and it's also going to be codependent. Meaning, when it gets into relationships, it feels this sense of attachment and dependence. So again, this is why I don't like the term codependent, because essentially everyone has that within them unless they have completely worked through their ego and they're spiritually enlightened. And that's super, super rare. And for most of us, it's not even relevant. So in a healthy relationship, there is attachment. There is interdependence. And that's why I feel like the self-love deficit more accurately describes this dynamic, because this is what gets you out of a codependent relationship. You love yourself enough to leave, okay? You stop taking the other person's needs and the other person's feelings and putting them above your own. You start taking your own needs and making them the priority in your life. So let's just talk about it here. How do you do this? How do you love yourself, right? You face the pain and the fear that that relationship is masking. So I hope this makes sense, what I'm describing here. You get yourself some support, you get yourself into therapy, you work with a coach, you work with a counselor, you get someone to help you walk through the pain that's going to come up when you leave that relationship. Because very often we get into these relationships because we feel some sort of lack, we feel maybe not worthy enough, and so we attach to this person who kind of fills that void temporarily, okay? So then when we want to get out of it, we have to face all of that stuff. Very, very difficult to do this, but it is 100% worth it. I can tell you from the other side, it is so worth it to go on this self-love path and start to heal some of these dynamics so that you can have a healthy relationship. Okay. So I hope this is making sense. Again, if you have any questions or if you want me to clarify something that I said here, please post that in the comments. Otherwise, I'm going to go on here to the next question that someone submitted, which is, how do you cultivate interdependency? So this is a very good transition from this last question when we're talking about codependency. So relationships are always going to have some sort of interdependency. Hi, Sandra. Okay, yes, I'm perfect. I'm glad this is making sense. Okay. So relationships are always going to have some sort of interdependency. That's what a relationship is. So basically, cultivating interdependency versus that codependency is really just acting in a healthy way. And again, I'm going to refer you to my healthy relationship behavior checklist. If you don't have it, comment checklist and I will send that over. But it's really very simple. It's showing up in a healthy way. And this means things like having boundaries in your relationship, which means saying no when you need to, when you don't want to do something, and the other person respecting that. Okay? It's about holding a safe space for your partner to share, okay, and for you to listen. So another good thing would be taking time to do your own thing. So that means having your own hobbies, having your own interests outside of the relationship that you can go do on your own, but also taking time to spend with the person you're in a relationship with. So it's a balance. You have your own stuff going on, but you also spend some good quality time together, okay? And also, one of the most important things here in developing interdependence is having very clear communication in a non-violent way. If you guys have ever read Nonviolent Communication, I highly recommend it. It's a very specific way of communicating your feelings and your needs that doesn't come across in a way that is criticizing, judgmental, or attacking. This can really completely shift your relationship dynamics. It's a very, very powerful tool. I highly recommend checking it out. Just Google nonviolent communication. There's lots of resources out there. So another way you can cultivate interdependence is to very clearly take responsibility for your own emotions and feelings. Now, this doesn't mean that you say, like, you don't communicate when someone has upset you. Hi, Motley. Thanks for watching. So yeah, this doesn't mean that you don't communicate when someone has upset you or hurt your feelings. It means you communicate it in a way, again, a nonviolent way, that's not blaming or saying, you did this to me. You say, when you did X, when you did this thing, it hurt my feelings. In the future, could you do X, Y, Z? So you say clearly how you feel, and then you tell the person how they could do it differently in the future to make it better for you, okay? So it's about being very clear in your communication, but also being nonviolent, okay? Because I think, as women, we sometimes, and really just as people in general, but I think women in particular, we can be somewhat violent in our communication without even realizing it, okay? It can just come across sometimes as very critical, as very judgmental. So we want to make sure we're sticking to I statements. I felt blank. I felt sad. I felt angry when XYZ happened, okay? And then communicating what you want to be different. It's difficult. It's, again, a skill that it takes some time to cultivate and practice. But again, it's well worth the effort of learning how to do this. It really can save relationships. Not abusive relationships, okay? But a healthy relationship where maybe there's just some conflict going on. It really makes things a lot better. Okay, guys, any questions? I do not see any live questions here. So does that mean I just covered everything? Did I answer all of the questions that you guys possibly had? Feel free to, I'll just leave the chat open here for a few minutes, but feel free to share any dating experiences that you're going through that you're not sure how you need to handle them. That's what this is for. And so yeah, I'll leave this open for a few minutes. But in the meantime, if you guys are interested in working with me, you can click on the link that I posted up above in the description of the video. My specialty is helping women to release all of the subconscious blocks that are holding them back from finding real love. And I also help them navigate the dating world. So what this looks like is if you come into my program, we release all of the emotional energies that are holding you back. I have a very powerful, specific form of energy healing that I use, and it releases tons and tons of baggage, okay? So you're feeling better, you're loving yourself more, you're feeling more confident. Oh, Sandra, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you asking questions and watching. And I see Motley's comment, great point. I read a book on the concept of talking with the I felt. Yeah, exactly. Okay. And Jessica, I will get to your question in a minute. I just want to finish this thought. So yes, if you join my program, we release all of the emotional baggage that you've been carrying around. We use some very, very powerful guided meditations to shift your deep held beliefs. All of these subconscious beliefs like I'm not good enough, I can't trust anyone. It's essentially like hypnosis. It's a very powerful form of getting into the subconscious and shifting those negative beliefs that are holding you back from real love. And then I walk you through the dating process. I teach you how to date. I teach you how to make sure you are avoiding all of the people who are not right for you so you don't miss any red flags, and I help guide you towards a healthy relationship, a healthy person for you. So yeah, if you guys are interested in hearing more about that, again, you can comment below Real Love. I'll reach out to you, or click on the link in the video description. Okay, so Jessica says, being in a healthy relationship is hard. Yeah, I'm constantly second guessing and doubting everything because we don't have those extreme highs or the passion that I did in toxic relationships. This is a wonderful question, Jessica. I'm so glad you asked it. Yes. So just getting into a healthy relationship, finding it, is half the journey. It's kind of half the battle here. Once you get into a healthy relationship, it's still an ongoing journey when you've had lots of difficult relationships in the past or been in a toxic or abusive relationship. It's a whole new world. It really is. And so for someone like Jessica, I know what you've been through. You're kind of like me. I had a lot of unhealthy relationships. So when I got into a healthy relationship, there was a lot of discomfort at first. And it doesn't mean that this was a bad relationship. It was just like, holy cow, I am so not used to this. Where's all the intensity? Where's all the passion? Where's all the drama? Where's all the ups and downs? It wasn't there. Okay? So what you're experiencing is very normal. And I can tell you that over time, and as you go through this process of really settling into the relationship, this will calm down. And Jessica, you're also very young here. You're on the younger side compared to me. So as you get older, you kind of naturally like want more safety and security, but you're still young. So I understand the difficulty here. What you can remind yourself of here is that you really have a choice to make here. Your choices are, do I want the roller coaster, toxic passion, that intensity, that's over here, or do I want the safety and security? The healthy relationship is where the safety and security is. It doesn't mean there's no passion, and I'm sure you're not meaning that there's not that there at all, but it's very, very different from the toxic relationship, the drama, the intensity. So you really have to like continuously make this choice, and usually it's a cognitive choice, because subconsciously you're like, ooh, I want that intensity, I want that passion, I want that drama. But cognitively, you know, consciously, this isn't healthy. This is not what I want. And so you kind of have to initially keep choosing that healthy relationship without all that drama and intensity, because that intensity and drama can be so addictive. This is how it was for me, and this is actually how you know you're in a healthy relationship. It's that you consciously choose to be there every day. You don't have this unconscious draw that's like keeping you stuck in that relationship. You're waking up every day and you're like, you know what? This is a really good relationship. I feel safe, I feel heard, I feel loved, I feel respected. I'm going to choose this. Okay? So it is hard. And Jessica, if you have some specific questions about something that's going on, please drop that in the comments here and I will address it. But Motley has said here, self-love heals. Yes, it does. Self-love is the healing force. And, you know, people like to make it very complicated, but really the core of self-love is just allowing yourself to feel what you feel, processing your emotions. That's it. Because when you do that, when you allow yourself to feel what you feel, you access your boundaries, your anger, how you actually really feel about a certain situation, and then you don't stay in these situations anymore, if this makes sense. You're like, yeah, you know what? This person isn't treating me well. I don't feel heard. I don't feel loved. I don't want to be here anymore. Okay. So Ronnie says, she asks here, I'm trying to figure out why I cannot let go of my toxic relationship. I caught him in lies about me to his coworkers. I told him to get out, but yet he's still here. And we do not even have passion. Maybe self-healing and assertiveness is what I need. Yeah, so Ronnie, I don't think you said here how long you have been in this relationship, but yes, these relationships are difficult to leave because we get so comfortable in them. We get very emotionally attached. So the prospect of leaving seems very, very daunting. And it is. It is. I mean, there's no escaping this. Leaving any relationship is challenging. Okay? So that's probably what's going on here. You know, you're probably very emotionally attached. And you feel free to share here with us if you have some specific thoughts that are running through your head. Like, does it feel like you'll never find anyone else? Or does it feel like it's too scary to leave the relationship, feel free to share that here. But yes, I do recommend self-healing and assertiveness. Ronnie, if you are interested in working with me, this is one of the things that I do. Occasionally, I will do individual sessions with people to release a lot of the emotional baggage. I do these energy healing sessions, and that alone can sometimes be enough to help people leave the relationship. That has happened a couple times. I've done like one session and people were able to leave where they couldn't before. So yeah, I do recommend self-healing, and please feel free to comment a little bit more. Okay, so Motley says, I am much older and struggling with being disabled as often, I'm not sure what this is here, too focused, and I'm not always comfortable with how safe dating will be, having only had experienced bad relationships. Okay, so Motley, safe dating would be taking things slow, okay? What we would want to see is a very, very steady but slow progression of intensity and progression of commitment. So what we don't want to see is someone who says they love you on the first date, who is pressuring you to have sex right away. But what we also don't want to see is someone who says things to you like, well, let's just see where it goes. And maybe they say they don't like labels, or they're not interested in commitment, and they kind of just like string you along there. Again, what we want is just a slow and steady escalation of commitment. Okay, so they're continuously reaching out to connect with you. They're asking you to go out on dates, COVID safe dates. They're calling you on the phone occasionally. You can even do video chat. Okay, so just very, very slow and steady progression of the dating experience. And I hope this is making sense here. As far as remaining safe in the very beginning of dating, you want to make sure, like on a first date, you're not going to someone's house. Okay? You want to make sure you're going somewhere public, at least the first date, if not maybe the first two dates, just so you know that this person is okay. You know, they're not going to pressure you into something that you're not ready for. If you're in a public place, it makes it much easier to suss this person out and feel a little bit more secure. So Molly, I hope this answers your question here. Okay, so Jessica says, what's the difference between sexual compatibility and the extreme passionate excitement that's toxic? This is a good question too. So sexual compatibility, the way I see this, means that you guys are able to meet each other's needs, and you're able to communicate in a way that feels very open, and you're essentially being satisfied, both people. Now, the extreme excitement that you feel in a toxic relationship, it's very, I'm trying to think of the best word here to say, it can be very confusing. It's almost like an illusion that when you have this like intensity of emotional experience that you have in a toxic relationship, it can make it seem like you guys are extremely sexually compatible, when that's really not the case. What's really happening is you're being so highly triggered and activated by that relationship that it triggers so much excitement within you, which is really also a lot of anxiety, that it feels like, oh my God, this is the most amazing sexual experience that I've ever had. So the way I see it is, in a healthy relationship, you don't have that intensity per se. It's the sexual compatibility and the experience it's a little quieter, but it's still there. You still feel like you're having good sex, you're getting your needs met. Maybe in this relationship, it's not as easy as it was for you with this person that you were toxic with. Because sometimes with people that we've been in toxic relationships with, kind of the glue that keeps us in them is like, oh my gosh, we're so sexually compatible, it's so good. And that could be true. It could be that, yeah, maybe when you were in that relationship, you guys felt really sexually compatible. But if all the other components are not there, it doesn't make a good relationship. So maybe in this new relationship, you guys have to work at it a little bit more. You know, it doesn't maybe come as natural or as easy as it did in that toxic relationship. But it doesn't mean that you should end the relationship because that sexual experience is not as good as the toxic relationship. It just means you got to work at it a little bit. You got to figure out what each other likes, how to please each other, and yeah. So I hope that this answers your question. If in this relationship you feel like you're really not being satisfied, it's really not happening, it's just like you guys are just completely different, then I would say, yeah, maybe there's a lack of sexual compatibility. But if your needs are getting met, if you're satisfied, you know, and your partner is too, I'd say you're good. You have sexual compatibility. Again, maybe it's not as good as that toxic relationship dynamic that you had, but over time, you can most definitely improve that area of your relationship. So again, I hope that this answers your question here. Okay, so Ronnie said, yeah, it's been 4 years. That's a long time. And yeah, it's scary. Yeah, exactly, Ronnie. Yeah, so just know that leaving any relationship is going to be scary. Toxic or not. It's going to be scary. You're going to feel some fear. You're going to feel some anxiety. That's just what happens when you leave a relationship, especially one that you've been in for a long time, 4 years. But also know that on the other side of this, if you can leave this relationship, you can have an amazing, healthy relationship with someone who does not lie to you, with someone who gives you their full attention, who shows up for you in the way you desire. I've heard this quote so many times, everything you want is on the other side of your fear. So if you want that healthy relationship, you have to move through the fear of ending that relationship. And as always, I am here for support. You can click on that link if you want to work with me, but it doesn't, I don't care who you work with, just get some support to help bridge that gap, to help you move through that fear of ending that relationship so that you can get into a healthy relationship in the future. All right, so Motley, I'm glad that answered the question. Yeah, okay, so you're disabled, and yes, you want and expect things to go slow, including sensible sensuality versus sexuality. Yeah, exactly. Motley, you take it at your own pace. And if someone isn't comfortable with that, okay, bye. They're not the right person for you, okay? So someone who is really interested in you and invested in you will be okay with you taking things slow. And if what slow means to you is like, I want to wait a couple months before I have sex, maybe that person, that's not what they want. So that just means you're simply incompatible and you just keep it moving, okay? You don't have to change your boundaries or what you want in order to keep a relationship. If someone is not on the same page with you as far as that goes, you're not compatible. And that's it. It's not, you're not wrong, they're not wrong, it's just not a match, okay? Ronnie says here, my partner says sex is not important. Says he could care less having it? Why? Interesting. Well, some people truly do not feel that sex is important. I am not one of those people. Ronnie, it sounds like you're not one of those people either. This could be for many different reasons. They could have some trauma around sex. For men, sometimes their testosterone could be low, so they simply just don't have any interest in it. They could have a lot of emotional baggage that is naturally lowering their desire for sex. There could be so many things going on here. But I think that sex is important. And if it's important for you, then it sounds like this relationship is not really a match. It's not ideal. All right. Any other questions, ladies, before I wrap up this live here? We've been going for 40 minutes. But I thank you to everyone here who has participated. I love doing these Ask Me Anythings. You guys have such great questions. and it's really, really fun to talk with you and to answer them. All right. I do not see any more questions. It seems like I just want to double check here. Oh, and Jessica, I want to make sure I clarified you here. I'm not sure I completely answered your question. Extreme passionate excitement that's toxic. So when you're experiencing extreme passion and excitement that's toxic, you can tell that that's what's going on because the rest of the relationship is unhealthy. So if you're experiencing that passion that feels super exciting and maybe toxic, if you look at the rest of the relationship, if the rest of the relationship is not good, if you don't feel heard, if you don't feel respected, if you're being abused, that's a sign that it's that toxic excitement. But you can still have that passion and excitement in a healthy relationship. It feels a little different, it feels a little quieter, but you can, again, check on the rest of the relationship. If the other aspects of the relationship are good, then that's a sign that it isn't something that's extremely toxic. Okay. Oh, I see a question here from Samia. Samia, do you have a question? I will stay on here for a few more seconds here. Okay, she says, well, I don't know much about the dating game, and I recently got out of a divorce. I walked out on him. He was a narcissist. Okay. And now I'm in a relationship with this guy, but I think I don't know how to handle him, or maybe he's too clever. I'm so confused as to what to do. So, Samia, I suspect that this relationship is not ideal because you're feeling like maybe he's too clever, or I don't know how to handle him. I mean, you haven't given much detail here, but just hearing those words from you doesn't give me a good impression of this relationship or this person. But I would need some more specific details here. Like, in what way do you mean you don't feel like you can handle him, or maybe he's too clever? Okay, so yeah, if you could share a little bit more here, that would be helpful. Okay, Jessica, good. I'm glad that this was helpful. So yeah, Samia, I'll give you a minute or more here to do this. But what I want to share here is, if you are in a relationship where you're like, I don't know about this. I'm really not feeling good. I'm feeling like maybe I'm a little bit intimidated here. Or maybe I just don't know how to handle him. That's not a good sign. In a healthy relationship, or I should say, when you're transitioning from a toxic relationship to a healthy relationship, yes, there is some discomfort because it's different. But you feel good in that relationship. You're not saying like, yeah, I don't know. Okay, like he comes close and then the next day he seems distant. So this could be that he really is what we would call an avoidant attachment, where the person likes to do that, coming close and then distancing himself. Or, Samia, it could be that you are perceiving distance when it isn't actually there. Again, I would have to know more details. Oh, okay, like the closeness we had the day before never ever happened. That's a little odd. Yeah. So, what I would say is, I think you have my healthy relationship behavior checklist. What I would say is, take this very, very slow. Watch out for the red flags. If this behavior continues, where you've had that closeness, and then the next day it's like, did we even experience that? That's a sign that this is not an ideal relationship for you. Again, like I spoke before about healthy dating, you want a slow and steady progression of increasing closeness and connection. So if you're getting that this person is coming close and then pulling away, and then coming close and then pulling away, that's not what we want. So this may not be the right person for you. Again, I don't know how long you've been dating this person. Maybe they just had a bad day. You can cut them some slack in the beginning. But if this is a consistent pattern, then that's probably not the right person for you. Yeah, Motley is saying anyone who says they don't care for sex could also be admitting a non-committal personality. That could very much be the case too, because sex is intimacy. They could have a fear of intimacy, and that could be something that's also going on. Yep. So Samia, I hope that this really answers your question. Again, I'm not getting super great vibes about this person. Again, in a healthy relationship, you're not going to be feeling these things. Like, when someone really is into you and they really like you and they show up, you feel it. You know, they're consistent. You know, they don't leave you feeling like, like what's going on? Like, what's happening? I feel something's off here. That is not how a healthy relationship feels. It feels good, but yet it's also a little bit uncomfortable when you've had bad relationships in the past. But that's what I'm doing, as he was sexually abused as a child. Yeah. So this is where, if we're very compassionate, empathetic people, we can sometimes ignore our own intuition that something's not right about the relationship because we have so much compassion for this person. You know, we understand that they have some difficulty from their past, that they had some trauma, and we can then excuse the way that they're treating us. But Samia, I would advise you to not do that, because yes, you can have compassion for this person, but if they have something going on in their past, that's something that they need to address themselves. They need to do that work with a professional, or many professionals, on their own. It's not something that you can support him with by staying in a relationship with him. It doesn't work that way. We have to do our own work. Yes, a partner can be supportive in the sense that, like, they're there for you and they cheer you on, but if this person isn't doing their own healing work, there's really not anything you can do. And a lot of us have that belief, and I know I certainly did, that my presence in this person's life is going to be so healing. Yeah, Molly says, I'm not your mama. Yeah. My presence in this person's life is going to be so healing for them. They're going to just be fine, and they're going to realize how awesome I am, and they're going to value me. But it doesn't work like that. And so, yeah, it doesn't seem like this is the right person for you, Samia, just based on what you've told me. But again, like, you can message me later. We can talk a little bit more about it later in the comments. Or excuse me, in Messenger. Okay. You are so welcome. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off here because I've been going for a while now. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you are interested in more support in your dating process, if you are ready to break the cycle of bad relationships for good, click on the link above and book a call with me. I do not let you get into a toxic relationship. If you are working with me, we are going to find you a really healthy relationship. All right, guys, I will talk to you soon. Take care.